Welcome to the Catholic DadCast by Rich Pintang, where we break down all things dad from a Catholic perspective. Now more than ever, we need dads to step up their game. Gentlemen, buckle up and get ready for battle. What's good, my brothers and sisters? We are on the Catholic DadCast, and I'm glad to have all of you. This is Rich Pintang, your host and founder, and I am pleased and excited to have another episode coming your way. So many things lined up, so many exciting things to share, and just like at any other week, so little time. But today's episode is actually being recorded on Veterans Day. So to our veterans, we honor you and we appreciate what you've done in defending our country. So God bless the red, white, and blue. This is episode number 2 of the Catholic Dadcast, and I have a very, very special guest who has a very unique story to share. He is out of Orange, California. He is a cradle Catholic as myself, happily married 2.5 years. He has a 1.5-year-old daughter, Violet, and one on the way. Cal State Long Beach grad, business degree, and professionally running his operations for his family's business of convenience stores. He's here to share with us how his call to missionary came into play, and we're excited to have him. Welcome, Justin Gauthier. Welcome to the show,
Hey,
Justin.
thank you, Rich. I appreciate you having me on here. I'm pretty excited about this as well.
You know, when Brother Mike shared your, a snippet of your story, I said that's a very unique path to missionary work, and I almost feel like missionaries don't necessarily have a chance to share how a lot of that came about, but that's why I felt very intrigued in having you on the show to share, because you we always have a chance to serve in different ways, but that's just a very special, very sacrificial way to serve. Now you're out of Orange, California. You're on the way to 2, and you have one on the way. So congratulations on that. I
Thank you. Yeah, we're
um
pretty excited about that.
I want to say that my son's 10 and my daughter's 15, but it's really weird to think back to when they were that small. How is it for you in terms of um, learning how to parent? Is it everything you expected?
Well, I think that it's very nice. Like I'm really excited of where we're at. I didn't have that many expectations going into it. I think that helps a lot because if I would have thought, like, oh well, they're not supposed to cry so much, or they're not supposed to do this, or they should be doing this, I think that would have affected it to maybe negatively. So for me, I kind of came into it like, okay, well, I'm one of 6 kids. My parents
Mhm.
had 6, so I was always around a lot of my brothers and sisters and people and whatnot. So not having expectations really helped, but I love it. It's beautiful. It's awesome. I love to see her smile. She laughs a lot. She's very busy, but it's fun. It's nice to see all her, like, as she's growing and whatnot as well.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because when you're looking at a tender 1.5-year-old, you really see God's innocence and like his amazing creation. And it should bring you joy as hard as it is to and challenging to be a parent. It's so rewarding. I mean, for most parents, they would say I wouldn't have it any other way. So I look at it as such a blessing. One of 6 kids, man. I can imagine what how hard your mom and dad work.
Yeah, we had a busy household, and but it was a lot of fun. It was always nice to have people around and people to connect with. So I think it's affected how, with my wife, we want to raise a family and whatnot. So we were really excited about this second one that's on the way. She's only about 13 weeks along.
Wow. Do you and this is kind of weird to ask, but I think it's kind of pertinent because I'm thinking of um are you one like the way I was when I would talk to the baby in the womb? Do you do any of that,
Oh
or
yeah.
rubbing of the tummy?
Oh yeah, I was doing that this morning. I did that with the first one, even singing to the baby
Mm,
in the womb. And the really cool thing about it was when once Violet, my daughter, was born, I would sing that same song to help her go to sleep, and it still seems to be the most effective song. Which it's actually a hymn or a song in Spanish, a Catholic one that's called Pescador de Hombres.
mm.
So that's one of the ones that she likes to listen to. But oh yeah, and then I would always just talk to her, and the new one on the way as well. I want to make sure they know my voice.
And the fact that you're in music ministry, it almost seems natural how music is such a strong way of worship. And I'm a fan of music, but I can't sing a lick. So usually, church is the one place I feel like I can share because God doesn't judge me that way. If anything, it encourages other people around me to like, if this guy can sing, I think I should be. But that's amazing because you know those are the times that come and go. I mean, when they're in the tummy and you can they get used to your voice and it's soothing, and really it's part of it is the giving your wife that attention too, because ultimately you guys are still one flesh. Now you had so you had graduated from Cal State Long Beach, and now at it says that you I think what we shared was that at the age of 24 was when you came to the decision that you wanted to pursue the missionary. I mean, how, what was that moment? What was it like when you were introduced to the idea and you said, that's what I want to do?
So I'll touch base on it a little bit. That was for when I decided to do that. That was more for a long term. I had been introduced to the idea of missionary work in a parish in when I was about 18, going on 19, like graduating from high school and then about to start college. And our church was connected with this missionary organization, and um, they had just gone one time, and then for like a 2 week mission, and so they would go and serve with this group and whatnot, and then they liked it so much they came back and started preaching it out to us as well. So I actually ended up going for the first time for like a 2 week mission when I was 19, and then I went again the next year, and then a couple of years after that. So I went a few times for a couple of weeks where we would evangelize. Some people were helping to like build a church or work with the local people and whatnot. But after I finished college, I got into work a little bit, and I for a couple of years, and excuse me, and then I decided, you know what, like I really want to give it all. I really want to serve full time, and I think that's how I can do it is if I just take off. So I planned it out, and I got prepared for like about a year. Practiced a lot of Spanish, and trying to take classes online and whatnot. I'm just preparing myself spiritually to go out there, and I went out there in June of 2013.
So what it sounds like, Justin, you had a taste of it just from a 2 week a 2 week mission. And I think back to a friend in church that for her 20, I think it was her 27th birthday, she gathered a, lo- you know a lot of us in the community to go down and participate in Corazon. And I think about the gift of giving someone shelter, you know um and bringing God's people together to give such a gift. But to give up, what you have here, and then to go, learn Spanish and such. Um, I mean, at any point, do you think that you felt like maybe this is a little bit too much to sacrifice?
I think I was a little different. I think that because I'm already 24. I was already 24 years old. I kind of just had, you know, well, okay, I guess now I'm trying to start to think about it a little bit more. It is tough. It was tough, to let everything go, but I think that I saw it as the rewards of what was coming was going to be, a lot more meaningful and totally worth it. So yes, it was difficult. Going on with that, yeah, it's not easy to just be like, oh well, goodbye my comfortable bed, goodbye, deciding what meal I want to eat. I'm going to eat whatever is given to me. I'm going to sleep wherever they offer me a home. I'm not going to know the language entirely, so there's going to be plenty of conversations where I'm not going to have a clue of what's going on. But I think at the same time, it was very humbling. So it's kind of like, well, you know what, like, but you're doing it for the right reasons. You're doing it for God. You're doing it for the church. So it's gonna return. You're gonna get back tenfold of what you put into it. So that was a good thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the what you received back, for sacrificing that and being obedient to God's will at that point. It has, because you can't say you'd be the same person today if you succumb to the fear and the doubt that committing to a mission would be. But at the same time, you know um you you take this on, and so you go to Honduras and you just submit to the programming. What were some of the initial culture shock that occurred as you kind of got settled in and really saw how you were going to be living?
Oh well, there's there's quite a few different things out there that's interesting. I think it's also really cool because you really don't know until you live with the people. I went on a 2 week mission, and I'm like, oh, okay, so like this is what it's like, but it's we're being there for over 2 years is totally different than 2 weeks, because you get a chance to live with the people and whatnot. So just there's some of their way that they do things. I saw also their level of faith. A lot of the people that we were visiting and we were working with were either like lapsed Catholics or in the faith, but they don't get a lot of attention from the priests because they're so far away. So we are going in and we're starting to talk with them and pray with them and that kind of stuff. And you could just see like how strong their faith was, even though they didn't know what a lot of us know here in the States, or we have access to all kinds of information, so we can get all the evidence in the world and prove all kinds of different things that prove that the church is true and real and all that kind of stuff, and Jesus in the Eucharist. But they just have this strong faith. So that was something that I really had to learn from on that level. Something that was interesting was Spanish. Not I thought I knew a lot more Spanish than I did. So when I got out there, I started talking with the people, and I'm explaining like, oh, this scripture is this and that, because that's what I've been studying for a while. And then they start talking and they start telling me all this stuff and all this slang, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't have a clue what you're saying. So that was probably one of the hard parts getting started, was the language barrier, and not realizing like, wow, even though I can say a lot of stuff, I don't know what they're saying, and they spoke fast. They spoke a different dialect that now I'm more familiar with. But yeah, so that was one of the barriers. And then some of the food, it's a little bit simpler there. So we had a lot of rice and beans and tortillas. That was pretty much our daily diet for the most part. And then in some of the poorer areas, we would have just beans and maybe a piece of cheese or something like that for a meal. So that was also something that you had to get used to. But I was always open to it. I was ready for it. And when it would come, obviously, some days we were walking for 5 miles, 6 miles, visiting tons of houses, and then oh, it's time for lunch, and then I got a bowl of beans. I'm like, man, I could really use, like, I would love a burger right now, or I would really love, to have a full meal. But at the same time, you say, you know what, this is what they're offering me, this is what they have. Like, I'm happy to have anything in front of me. So, so you get both sides. You're like, oh man, why don't I have this comfort? But at the same time, I'm like, oh well, you know what? That's what I'm here for. And look at these people. That this is what they eat. Like, I get this chance to share the same lifestyle for just that short amount of time.
Yeah, that's amazing to think about because for years, for almost 8 years, I've worked with international students coming from all different parts of the world here to the United States, and there's a certain level of culture shock there because they see what they think America and Americans are on TV, and a lot of these culture exchanges, they come to Southern California and they have a chance to experience the American life, what they think is the American life. And obviously you can go down any road or street and we all look very different as Americans. That's the beauty of the melting pot of the United States. But one of those things is um, getting used to the culture and how things are so different. Like the words we use, the speed at which we speak, it how we speak here in California is not how they speak in Louisiana or Texas. And so that
Right.
we always our host families, we would always say, understand that they may not truly understand, you know what to do with the toilet paper and not to wash their clothes in the sink and things like that that are just very different to them. But a couple of things that came to mind is the language is one, but the food, the fact that you know uh, it's very humbling, I bet, to have that kind of hunger and then realize, gosh, I really do miss some of the things that I have back home, and being able to go to In and Out and having a burger in, you know, 11 minutes. But but when it comes to the food, I just think, gosh, that in itself, knowing that, they having a chance to have, rice and beans, they basically were giving you all they have, and you learn to just appreciate that meal, especially after walking, miles and miles a day and visiting different families. Another thing that resonates is the fact that the distance to the church and them still having a strong belief. For us, for example, here in North Orange County, I have, 3 or 4 parishes I can choose from. And we're very fortunate that they're all very strong and have different personalities. But I think as Catholics, we forget that all around the world, there are plenty of rural areas where they just don't have a church or have access. And how often we neglect to see the importance of um, having the benefit of going and receiving the Eucharist, and what a gift that sacrament is. And then to see and witness how their faith is still strong, even if they're that far away. I could see how religion can go in another direction where I don't really need religion. I don't see it. But
Right.
you saw the
Or
opposite.
another type of Christian denomination that someone just decides, like, oh well, these people can use some help, so I'm gonna start my own church. And there was a few of those that were popping up because of exactly that, the not having the attention.
Hmm. But you, when you were
So
visiting homes, you were able to, you know, really preach about the Catholic principles. I mean, you had your share of different material that you were going in and try to instill and nourish them spiritually. There, it sounds like.
oh yeah, so it's an interesting, the organization that I went with. I they're very authentic, and I loved it. Like, we had when so to put it in context, I lived in a huge house that they have in Comayagua in Honduras, and it was built there as a center. to house missionaries, and also a combination. There was Hondurans that were missionaries that chose to live in the house. There was people from Mexico, people from all over, and then the United States, and we stayed there together. But for about 20 weeks or more out of the year, we go to the smaller towns and little places that are called like aldeas, and we stay there for a week at a time. And we put on programs for them, for the kids, for the teenagers, for the adults, like each day that we're there in the afternoons. And then in the mornings, we were visiting all the houses, inviting the people to the programs, talking to them, praying with them, seeing where they're at with things. So it was, it's a very unique situation because we got, I was in a house, but then a lot of the time I wasn't. It was wherever I was sent to. We also did like certain things with confirmation, getting like 1 day confirmation retreat for these people because they couldn't really have anything like that. And the priest like sends us out. He's like, hey, I'm in charge of these 700 churches, and these 50 I haven't been there in a year. So like some of these places hadn't had the Eucharist in a year. They hadn't had it in 6 months. So he said, like it was like very helpful that we were there, and we're like, hey, send us, wherever. So we go driving, for example, 8 hours to get to a certain place, and we're in the mountains, and then we just meet with the people, and we would put on these programs or go in and teach them. So we would use like the gospel of the day. We were praying the same type of stuff. We were using the readings from the day. We're talking about Mary in the church and the foundation of the church, and we had little pamphlets that we would drop off to, and then we would just talk with them, see where they were at in their faith journey and how things were going. So we mostly went to Catholics, either ones that were part of the church and aren't anymore, or are, or wherever they're at, just to kind of boost their faith, because we knew that they're the ones we're leaving after we leave after this short amount of time. They're the ones that have to really, bring it to the rest of the people. So that's a lot of what we did, and we found a lot of areas where something as simple as that. Some of these places started they didn't have a youth ministry, and then after we went there, they started their own youth ministry. They decided that, okay, these teenagers need more attention and that kind of a thing, and they began it. So that happened in a few different places, and those are the kind of things we just love to see, because it's like, oh wow, you don't always get to see the fruit of what you're doing, but when you do, man, that would just be like, all right, the whole thing's worth it. Like it's been years now, and these towns still have these groups that they began because of something that God used us to get that going.
It makes you for me, it makes me realize that sometimes when there's a second collection, for example, at at church, how you kind of discern this is going to bless someone somehow in some way. But if you really follow that along, and you happen to be the person that's there to bless them, I don't think we would ever second guess contributing to a cause. What I was envisioning as you were telling me that, I was envisioning the fact that they haven't received someone, a visitor, in such a long time, that they almost welcomed you with a lot of joy, or were they more hesitant because you're coming to them to somehow bless them and nourish them spiritually, but at the same time, how fun was it for you to see maybe the joy in their face for you arriving, and then also the fact that maybe you're lighter complected and they're like, wow, he can speak Spanish.
So yeah, I was thinking of that when as being I am Caucasian, being that in some of these places they had never even seen someone that was Caucasian. So their response is like they're laughing or kind of like giggling like the moms and whatnot. So I thought that was pretty funny. I remember that in a few different places. Something that really stuck with me though, they I'd say like 99% of the time it was joy. Like these people were so happy, like finally, like people are coming to us, like you didn't, we're not forgotten. And so to be able to be a part of that, even it didn't matter how many people came to our stuff, the meetings that we had, or the the programs and whatnot, it just, even if it was 5 people, it was still like, wow, like these are the 5 people I get to be with right now. This is who God wants us to be with and present. And oh yeah, they had a lot of joy. And I think that as far as the Spanish, what you wouldn't really think about is it's very different than here. Over there, that's their language. So I don't think they really saw a lot of like, whoa, like this guy speaks Spanish, like this is crazy. It was more just like, oh, okay, let's talk. And then where they thought that I understood everything because I would speak Spanish, so they would just go and they say all kinds of stuff, and I'd be like, oh man, I'm only getting about half of what you're saying. So at the beginning, it was a little harder, but about 6 months in, I was pretty solid. And after that, for the next like year and a half to 2 years, I was just getting more and more. So that was a blessing to learn that stuff. But yeah, it was beautiful to be able to be the one that would go there and see the reactions like, hey, we're here. And they're like, oh, well, we've been waiting because someone told us that you guys are coming. So like that's how they would prepare, like, okay, who's going to house them? Okay, who's going to provide lunch on this day? Who's going to do this? So it was really cool to also see the community come together for us. We go like it says to wherever you're accepted, wherever you're received, and these towns, they always found a way to receive us.
It's amazing because, not only are you spending time with them, you're bringing the sacraments to them and allowing them to really see the importance of sacraments. But, they must have seen, you know, Christ's love radiate from your interaction with them. And you just hope that was an experience where they felt like, oh, the American visitor we had, that was, so memorable. And I want to do the things that he was doing. And that because I was looking at some of the statistics of Catholics, and it's in Honduras, and what I saw, at least from what Wikipedia showed, was that 46% of the population is considered Catholic, 41% is Protestant, and I mean it basically it comes down to about 4 million Catholics there. But I mean, how many of them probably hunger even more? And how many compared to how many we have here, in the United States, as at least from what I found, was 51 million Catholics, and it's really only a fifth of the population here. Those 46% of the population in Honduras, um, you know, it's kind of sad to see that they may not be as spiritually fed as often, but their faith is so strong, and that really goes to show you that they're still strong in faith without really seeing. So how much more on fire will these people be if we can outreach, even more with them? I mean, that's to me, that's a once in a lifetime kind of experience, to be able to serve in such a way in missionaries. What was the name of the um missionary organization that found you guys?
Yeah, so the organization is called Missioners of Christ. They've been around. It's almost, wow, now it's been about 20 years, I think, that they've had a place in Honduras, but they're based out of Virginia. And yeah, they I mean, I think that my local parish wanted to do missionary work, and they just went on the internet and started searching around and found them, and then that was what ignited the connection. And what's beautiful is, I mean, they have a tight. I don't know if you're familiar with the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. They're out of New York, and they are they wear like gray habits and whatnot, but they follow Saint Francis. Um, but they have a lot of brothers or religious that have actually come, and they've done missions in Honduras, and later have become priests. And they have because they also have a house that's like across the street from where I was staying. So I have priests that are coming from the U.S. that live there for a certain amount of time, and they minister to the people to help out also with these missions and with the local people there. So, so we have that connection as well. So we have access to the sacraments. Thank God, daily, right out there. So, yeah, but the organization is called Missionaries of Christ. You can find them online too.
Yeah, we'll make sure I'll make sure to include it in the show notes for those that are inclined to look into missionary work. In fact, I almost feel like we forget how fortunate we are here in the U.S. How abundant we are in terms of resources, and even for me, growing up here, I never really understood how it is to truly live in different living situations until I went back to the Philippines at the age of 13. American kid, totally spoon fed and not understanding all these stories that mom and dad were telling me until I was walking those dirt roads and I was seeing that I was very different. They knew I was American, not by my looks, but the fact that I had different type of clothing. They could smell the detergent on it, and they just knew this guy's not from our village. And it's just knowing that to be able to do great things like that on because you're being called to it has to resonate with you that those are stories you'll be able to tell the kids at some point. And in fact, even when you're you're in music ministry at church, it leads you to other things and other ways to serve. In fact, it allowed you to meet your wife. What was your wife's name?
My wife's name is Christy.
Christy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was playing music also in Honduras, like helping out with in the programs and everything, playing music for mass, all kinds of stuff like that. But when I came back, I actually joined the choir, a local choir that's a Spanish choir, because I was so into the Spanish, and I was more familiar with that as well. I a couple weeks after joining, the whole choir came together, and then that's where I met my wife right at church. So it was really cool to see how everything comes together. If I hadn't gone to Honduras and learned all that and Spanish music and involved myself in that way, I probably wouldn't want to have felt confident enough to join a Spanish choir. So everything leads us to where we're at. But yeah, I think I really liked what you were saying, Rich, that you don't really know what you have, or we take it for granted over here, without even knowing that we are, and until we see it somewhere else, and then it kind of puts this other idea in our head or perspective of how other people are living. We really do have so much over here. So as much as we were, going to these people and bringing the faith to them and whatnot, they filled us up so much that all of these missionaries that even went for 2 weeks, some for a week, we had students that were in high school, 15, 16-year-old, that would come out as well, because the organization makes sure that everyone's safe and all that kind of stuff. I mean, these we were getting filled, so we're bringing that back home. So the impact that Honduras was making on us being back here is just phenomenal as well. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of good stuff in the States because of their experience. So I think it had a much deeper impact than on paper. We're like, okay, well, we're going to go be missionaries and this and that. And then you leave and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm really not as strong in my faith as I thought I was. Like, look at this person who hasn't had the Eucharist in 6 months, and they believe the presence is there stronger than most people that I am around in my hometown. So it's
It's
interesting.
very true. No, it's very true. In fact, one of the reasons why, as we kind of close down, one of the reasons why I wanted um, the Catholic Dadcast to really evolve was because I feel like there's too many of us that are lukewarm Catholics. I don't think we understand, when we're told to use our time, talent, and treasure um, to preach the gospel and to serve God in that way. I mean, in fact, that's what quite quite frankly, that's what Sunday's gospel is about. It's the parable of the talents. But like you say, you really don't know what you have until you've really allowed God to work in your life. And to me, that's what I see there. And what I'm hoping, I'm kind of putting you on the spot, Justin, but I was hoping you could close in prayer in Spanish, and also um, share what you think is coming to mind for those that want to serve, maybe not on the missionary side, but also dads that might be listening in, that should be inspired by the yes that you gave to Christ.
Oh yeah, so yeah, for anyone that is listening, I mean, we mission work isn't just in another country. It's not only in that way, or you have to go to a soup kitchen. And I mean, these things are amazing, and it's fantastic to go and serve in these ways, or serve the homeless. You'll find your ministry, but if a lot of times dads don't feel like we have that time. We have kids, we have a wife, we have a job, and then we have to, we want to be involved in church. So all this kind of stuff, it's a busy time. So I think a great thing that dads like myself and you, we can find a way in our daily life to make a daily decision, trying to start the day off with prayer, or when we're driving, just preparing our mind, and then wherever we go, there's snippets that we can, kind of bring God into where we're at. So if you're at work, or you can kind of think of a situation like you want these people to see Christ in you, because that's where the changes start occurring. And you want people to see, like, wow, like this person has so much joy. This person is like so happy. Like, what is that? And eventually it's going to come out that you're Catholic. It's going to come out that, like, oh yeah, like I love Jesus, and then they're like, oh my gosh, that's why he's so happy. Like, well, I didn't get it, because that's kind of how now that's more of what the mission is here now. It was there at that time, but it's in my hometown. Within the family. It's at my work, and I love to let people know, like, it pops out like, oh yeah, well I got to do this. Oh yeah, because I'm Catholic, and then my employees are like, oh, like wow, and they connect the dots. It's not like I have to tell them, like, oh yeah, being Catholic is good, because, like, no, they get it. So those are things that we should do back home, because it's our image. We are the church. We are the image of the church. So how
Amen to
we
that.
how
Amen
we
to that.
behave, that's where they're gonna be taking it. So yeah, I'd say anyone that is even thinking about doing missionary work, it's a great thing. There's all kinds of missions you can find. There's short term, there's long term. I've had some couples that have decided to just straight up move away, and God always takes care. If you're doing things for the right reasons, then He will provide. So yeah, thank you, Rich. I appreciate you allowing me to share a little bit of this, and I hope that people can really see the fruit that comes from it, even in our daily struggles. We're all connected.
No, I believe so too, Justin. It's I'm on the same wavelength as you, as in terms of understanding that we're called to serve every day. We're supposed to represent the hands and feet of the Christ, because we are the church, and so that's the way I look at it. Also, I mean, so um, that's an amazing story. Would you mind closing in prayer in Spanish?
Of
I'd love
course.
that.
Sure. En el nombre del Padre, y del Hijo, y del Espíritu Santo. Señor, te damos gracias por este día y la bendición de la vida. Gracias, Señor, por darnos esta oportunidad para compartir juntos y rezar y hablar de la misión y todo lo bonito que tú nos enseñas cada día. Te pedimos que este podcast bendiga a todas las personas que escuchan, y también rezamos por todas las personas que necesitan nuestras oraciones en este tiempo. Gracias por la misión, gracias por la iglesia, gracias por la vida. Ponemos todo en tus santas manos, y te amamos. Amén. En el
Amen.
nombre del Padre, y del Hijo y del Espíritu Santo.
Amen.
Amén.
Justin, you're awesome, man. That was amazing. That was amazing. I felt the spirit. Um, I can say that's probably one of the first times someone has prayed for me in Spanish, but um, that was very heartfelt, man. I appreciate that you understand my vision, and I'm hoping that our viewers and our listeners get a chance to really understand, how on fire you are for the Lord. And I'll be sure to be praying for you and Christy and the family, and I'll be waiting for some baby pictures to come up at some point. But
Oh yes, thank you.
I appreciate you being on the show and sharing that. Brothers and sisters, that is episode 2. This podcast episode has ended. Go now in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.